Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we explore experiencing life being the real you. I'm your host, Randy Adkins Jr., author, teacher, speaker, preacher, and lifelong learner. Hey! It's 1 year. We have made it, and it's a celebration. What a milestone that we have made it to 1 year on the Produce on Purpose podcast. What a significant time that we're having at this moment. I have a special guest today, and she is beautiful. It is my wife. Yes, Sherlonda Adkins, our Unstuck strategist, is going to be here, and she's going to actually be the interviewer, and she's going to interview me as your host. And we're going to talk about my podcast journey so far in this year and how it has changed my life and what it has done as we have kind of gone throughout this year. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you are as well. So let's go ahead and jump into this episode. Let's start this episode off with a great dad joke. I took my daughter to the office on Take Your Kid to Work Day. But when we walked in the office, she started crying. As concerned staff gathered around her, I asked her what was wrong. And she said, "Daddy, where are all the clowns you said you worked with?" Share this dad joke with somebody, because smiling is important, laughing is important for our soul, and we know that it is important that we continue to do that. So looking forward to you sharing that with everyone. So we're going to start this episode off, our 1 year anniversary, with a scripture, as we do with all of the episodes. Psalms 100. I'm going to read in the entire verses that are there. "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and praise his name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations." This is a fitting scripture for us to make a joyful noise for a year of podcasting, a year of sharing awesome information to everyone. I want to make a joyful noise and begin to celebrate for us to move forward into this next year. So I have the awesome job of introducing this great interviewer that I have today in front of me, my beautiful wife of 25 years. We've been celebrating this entire year, this love that we have had, and it has given us offspring of 3 children. And she is called the Unstuck Strategist. I'm loving it because I'm able to look in her eyes at this moment, and she's going to ask me some questions that are related to this year and all that we've been able to do on this podcast. So welcome. How is it, babe?
I'm so excited for you. I am so glad that you were taking time to celebrate this milestone. You know, I'm big on celebrations, and watching you over this past year put your voice out into the world and make impact has been an honor. So I'm so glad to be here to celebrate with you.
Well, welcome, baby. It is so great to have you here. Sometimes I'm just sitting here all by myself trying to make this sound good, but I think it sounds better today for some reason. So you're going to ask me some questions, and I'll respond with whatever it comes our way. We're going to just go with it, and let's have a good time.
All right. So you're giving me an opportunity to kind of play into the role of the news anchor person that I thought I was going to be some years ago. So you ready?
I'm ready.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. So first question I have for you, of all the things that you do, what in the world made you decide to do a podcast?
Well, this is really a great question, because podcasting is just another way for me to get this word out. However, many years ago, I was told that I had the perfect voice to be on the radio. Now, maybe some of you have noticed, but I think I kind of lay it on a little bit while I'm on the podcast, and I think I do sound good. What do you think, babe?
Oh, yeah. I've had the privilege for, like you said, 25 years, almost 26 years, waking up to and going to sleep to your voice. And it was just confirmed by some of my friends that you do have a radio voice. One said your voice is not meant for public consumption.
Ooh. I don't know what that means. However, I will say that this podcasting journey has been fantastic. It's been something that I've been extremely excited about because it allows me to share to the world, hey, you can live a life that's full of joy, a life that's full of fun, a life that is full of excitement. And you don't have to wake up and be sad every day, but there are ways for us to be able to move forward, for us to be producers, for us to have a purpose in our lives and have meaning in our lives. And this is just another form, in addition to me writing a book, in addition to me speaking and preaching, that I'm able to share this great message with the world. And I'm just so excited to be able to do that. And wow, I can't believe it's already been an entire year.
That's wonderful. And I wonder, because I often hear that sometimes when we are doing things for other people, we are the ones who, in fact, experience a transformation. So what transformation have you undergone since starting this podcast?
There have been multiple transformations since I started this podcast. I mean, starting off, I really was afraid to even get on the mic and try to figure out how is all of this supposed to work, because the podcast is nationally out there. Everyone's going to hear it. How can I make sure that this is something that everyone's going to listen to and that it actually sounds good? Well, I was really afraid to kind of start off with it. And I went out and I just said, let me start going down this path of trying to figure out how can I get this message out. And as I started doing that, some of the fear that I had started to dissipate over the episodes. Now, I always encourage everyone, go back, listen to some of the first episodes, and listen to some of the later episodes. There are going to be some differences in content and differences in the quality of the audio. I really at first got caught up on a lot of trying to perfect the audio of the podcast. And so I was trying to learn how to deal with this mic, how to deal with the software that's there. And it was a lot of fear that was there. I had content and information I was sharing, but I was doing a lot of editing. So the amount of time it was taking me to put a podcast out was taking a lot of time. But over time, over the year, I got better. And it has been transformational for me to let me know that I probably in anything in life, I should try to go ahead and just start it and just keep getting better and better and better. And I think listening to the old episode, I did it a couple of weeks ago, listened to one of my first episodes, and the audio was not very good. The sound and everything wasn't the best, but it was out there and it had good content. And I have changed over the year by getting more confidence. It's been for me to have more courage as it comes to doing things, even just the podcast and saying, I'm going to go do an episode right now. And it doesn't take as long for me to edit. I actually, a lot of times, just go through and just start speaking. And it's just beautiful.
You know, that is true, because there have been times where I maybe ran out for a little while and came back and you're like, oh, I just did a podcast episode. I'm like, really? That fast? So you're right. You have gotten a lot better and more efficient. So thank you for being vulnerable in that answer. I like the fact that you said you experienced fear. And, you know, I work in mental health. So that's something that I encourage people to really identify their feelings and their emotions. And sometimes, generally speaking, men aren't so quick to say that they were afraid of something. And in that, I think your message is do it afraid. So you did it, you overcame it, and it didn't have to be perfect. You're still making impact, even in the imperfection. So thank you so much for sharing that. So you mentioned content, which brings me to my next question. How do you come up with all this content? Because sometimes I'm on social media and I'm trying to figure out what do I want to talk about when I'm doing a live or I'm getting ready to write something. But for you, there seems to be this unending, endless well of information and inspiration. So tell us a little bit about where your content comes from.
So initially, the season 1 content was a precursor to the book, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life, Being the Real You, which we were able to publish in April, but the podcast started in October, and I was actually taking information from the chapters of the book. And if you listen to the episodes, they were coming together from that initial piece from the content. The other content that I get all the time is content that I'm reading, content that I have taught over the years. I've been teaching and preaching and speaking for well over 20 years. And through that, I always have content to share with someone and things that have affected me and has changed me over the years. I love sharing throughout the episodes. So season 2 has been really impactful for me because a lot of the content in season 2 talks about letting go and letting go of many of the things that often hold us back from being the best versions of ourselves. The goal is for us to be the real you and the real me, that we're able to come and express ourselves and be who we need to be. But many times, in order for us to do that, we have to let go of some of the things, some of the thinking patterns, some of the emotional trauma, some of the issues that we may have had. And in fact, the episode that I love the most so far has been I Fired My Ego, and that transformed my life. That's going to be one of those things that is just inspiring to me, to be able to provide that kind of content all the time. And it's through all of the things that we do all the time. And of course, I have to throw in a great dad joke and every episode.
Yes, the dad jokes. Of course, the dad jokes. So you put messages out, and it's as if you're putting them out in faith. Like you said, this goes out nationwide, reaching people that you will never even see in some cases. So what was that moment like when you started hearing feedback about the messages that you're putting out?
It is really humbling. And then additionally, it is also something that provides confirmation, because that type of feedback of telling me how that message transformed me, or I agree with what you were saying here. And if you understand that these things that you've been saying are helping me to graft and change and move in my life, it is very exciting to me, and it also gives me courage to continue to move forward and continue to provide information, can provide the content to everyone that is listening. And it's just exciting. It's exciting to hear that kind of feedback and that lives are being transformed and changed. And I am so excited because I hear information about episodes that I started back in last year. I hear about some of them now. And that means that this is evergreen and that it's always out there for someone to listen to at any moment in time. So it's been really, really fun and exciting to hear that feedback come back.
Yeah, something else I just thought about too. A lot of people who I've spoken with have said they don't like to hear their voices recorded, like on an answering machine, a voicemail, podcast. So for you, has it ever been an issue?
No, I love hearing my voice. This has actually been fun doing this. Many times I think it's more about me on video than me on the sounding on the audio. I actually love the sound, and it's been fun. It's been fun being able to put this out there and share with everyone.
So for people who don't know us personally, I'll share that we met when we were in college. And at that time, you were working as an assistant manager or a shift manager at a shoe store at the local mall. So thinking back to your days working in the shoe store, could you have ever imagined that you would be writing a book, doing a podcast, impacting the world?
No. Wow. And I like that question. It's interesting because really when I first started in the shoe store, I was not a very vocal person. And one of the things that the shoe store taught me while I was there is we had to greet people and share information and say, hey, how are you? And just get the information out there to them very quickly. And from there, I would not have thought that I would have been in this space where I'm an author, I speak, I preach, I am on a podcast. I would never have thought that I would have been doing this in my life. And my encouragement, of course, to all the listeners is it doesn't matter where you are right now. You never know where you may end up going, because over time, all of the things that I have experienced, all of the great knowledge, skills, experience that I've learned has led me to here. And I am having all the fun and enjoyment being able to share this kind of information on a consistent basis and really helping everyone wake up in the morning and be excited to wake up. I just love being able to share this, and it's based on the Bible. I'm able to share information. Now, you had asked about content earlier. A lot of the content comes directly from the Bible. I use it as a foundation of how I am to live my life and how others can really live their life in a happy way. I would have never thought I would have been here at this moment in time. And so isn't it amazing how life can take you on these journeys? However, I always found you have this golden thread in the room that kind of shares that sometimes you find this golden thread throughout. And one of the golden threads for me was leadership and also being able to share information and being able to have a place in my life where I can teach. And I can teach sometimes the most complex things and make them sound simple. And that's been a golden thread throughout my life. And I've really had fun doing that and doing this on this podcast.
Well, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I saw your potential.
You did? Wow.
I said, look at that guy working in the shoe store. He's speaking to customers and people he don't even know. He's trying to help them. Yeah, he make a good companion and a good father.
Okay. You saw that in the shoe store.
I did. I saw it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. So I've learned a lot along your journey about podcasting because it's new to me. I've been on a podcast before as a guest a couple of times, but in learning about podcasting, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and then you have to make decisions about whether or not you want to do a solo podcast or if you want to bring on guests. Like, wait, am I your first guest?
You are my first guest.
Oh, I feel so special. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about that. How do you decide between bringing on guests or doing solo, and what's your plan for the future?
So I have been doing what we call solo podcasting, which has been, for me, the easiest thing because I am able to have the content. I'm not trying to schedule guests, and I do love being a guest on many podcasts that I've been able to interview and be a part of. However, for content and being able to put information out, it's easier for me with my schedule to do the solo podcasting. However, in the future, there may be some opportunity where we have guests, such as today. We have a guest on, and you are my first guest on the podcast, where we can bring in different ideas, different thoughts, and really share that information as we move forward. The other things that I'm thinking about for the future of this podcast have to do with video. I believe that video is very powerful and can be strong in what it does. And so maybe what the progression will be is first video along with the solo podcast. And maybe in the future, I'm still wavering whether or not I'm going to move to a place where I bring on more guests, or maybe I just continue to have this special guest that's here come and be a part of the podcast all the time.
Is that an invitation?
If you want to be a part of the podcast, you are always invited.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So going back to the beginning of your journey. So this is a celebration. I like to look back and think back. And I think I know the answer to this question, but if you had any particular insights or advice that you wish you had known when you first started, what would you tell your Randy self this time last year, getting ready to start your podcast?
It's going to be okay. The quality doesn't have to be perfect. That you have the content, you have the ability to do this. You can make sure that it happens. And yes, there's a lot of technical pieces to learn, whether it's editing, choosing the right mic, choosing the right boom, choosing how you're going to actually set up the podcast. So there's so much information out there, and all information tells you can set it up the way that you want. What about intros and outros? Don't worry so much about the technical pieces. Go ahead and put it out there. And as you continue to move forward, learn as you go. And then you will have something that you can put out to this world that will be good. Don't worry so much about the technical pieces and trying to make it perfect. I just think back to probably some of the first podcasts. I took probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 takes on many of the items. And today I just do it in one take. And so that's a big difference. And as a Toastmaster, I've also learned that that's part of how we've been able to move forward. So many times I would do speeches, and speeches I would have to do over and over and over and over again. But once you learn the content and you're able to share it, then you're also learning new gestures and items that you're able to put out there, and you're able to convey it in a different way. And I would just tell myself, don't worry so much about those technical details, but begin with what you have and definitely do some of the research, but don't be so afraid that when you start moving forward, you will tweak as you move forward. And that's why I believe if you go back and listen to episode 1 and listen to this episode, you see the difference, you can hear the differences, and you can feel the difference in the content and how it's being portrayed.
So you really do practice what you preach, because that's a message that you always encourage me with, is not trying to wait until I have all the pieces in place, have all the answers figured out, but to just start and know that throughout the process, there will be, your favorite word, iterations. And so that has helped me a lot. And so I think the big takeaway from this celebration that I'm hearing, and that I hope your listeners will hear and be encouraged by, is to just start, just do it, because there's so much impact that's being left on the table. The more you wait, the more you try to figure out how is it all going to work, but you didn't do that. You started, you had a vision, and you started with what you had. And I, see the microphone has gotten better. You've gotten a new computer within the last year. You even have a new chair that you just got. So, the pieces are coming together. And so I am really excited for you and the future of your podcast and all that you have going on. So one last question for you. Your Produce on Purpose community has grown significantly during this past year. How do you engage with your listeners, and what role have your listeners played in the podcast development?
So there has been great community involvement. I sometimes get feedback on my website, randyadkinsjr.com. I have definitely gotten a lot more feedback on YouTube and some of the other platforms where our listeners have left reviews. I sometimes get feedback also coming from those at my church and those that listen to the podcast that have shared that they have had some changes happen in their lives because of what they hear, and encouragement to continue to share this information and to share different things to do. In fact, I've had feedback about the journaling that is being shared throughout the podcast to say, hey, take a look, journal your prayer, journal what's going on, and look back at how your life has changed when you begin to apply some of these concepts in your life. And I believe that just little tidbits like that of practical application has helped to change, even with feedback on the content of what works well for the listeners of this podcast. And many of the podcast listeners are becoming more authentic in themselves. They are no longer wearing the masks. One of the most popular episodes with the greatest downloads is removing the mask and becoming the real you. And I believe because it is a place where there's a transition in life where we can truly authentically become who we are and show up that way in everything that we do. And that means at home, that means at work, that means in organizations that you're in, or at the grocery store, on your commutes. You can be who you need to be, because it's very difficult to live in this world trying to juggle masks and trying to be someone else. Everyone on this podcast can be a producer, and they can make a difference in this world, and they can change this world by living the life that is authentic to themselves. And I believe that feedback has been monumental in coming back from connecting with listeners and hearing from them. And of course, I always encourage them, please reach out. Let me know. I want to hear from you as you are sharing how this podcast has been able to change and really transform your life.
I love that you brought up the mask, because when I think about Produce on Purpose, and maybe it's because the mask is on the book cover.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have not gotten the book, get the book. It's so good. I might be biased, but I'm not. It is really good. But when you talk about the mask, to me, it's just a tangible action of removing a mask and allowing the authentic version of yourself to come through. So I love that you said that. So the final question that I have for you is, of course, anytime you're pouring out, it's easy to become depleted. So what are some of the things that you do? Do you have particular strategies that you use to stay inspired and motivated and aligned with your purpose? So you talk about producing on purpose. And because of the world that we live in, I'm sure there are times where it's easy to revert to old ways or to get back under the mask. But what do you do, especially during challenging times, to stay inspired?
Inspiration comes from really the practices, the disciplines on a consistent basis of listening to the voices in my head. So there's always competing voices that are occurring, and listening to the ones that are negative and saying, you know what, those negative voices, I'm not going to allow those to impact who I am. And I have the ability to choose to let those go, to not have those have the attention in my life, and really focus on having the positive. That happens through prayer, that happens through meditation, that happens for me through reading and having the Word of God there. And that also happens through love. And that happens through having a family, having support, having them around all the time and being able to connect with them. And so that has been one of the balances that has helped me consistently, and that I'm able to journal sometimes the things that are going on, that have been going on in my life, and see the differences, see the changes, see where those things and the steps have had me grow closer to the creator that I have, and how that has changed my life, and that I'm able to have that balance. And with all of the things that I may be doing, that I'm able to share that. And we just got a massage the other day, and that was cool. That also taking care of my body and exercising and having massages and doing those different things like that help to provide balance in life. And that's been really cool and exciting. And also getting away. Sometimes we have to get away from the patterns that we consistently be in. And that's either through travel or just taking time off and not thinking at all. And that's been really good.
I am so proud of you. I'm so happy to witness all of the transformations along your journeys over the last couple of decades. It's truly been an honor. And again, I can't say it enough. I am super proud of you. And of course, I'm here. Anything I can do to support you, that is what I've been put on this earth to do. One of my main jobs is to support you and to see you grow and to flourish and to produce on purpose brand for it to continue making impact in this world. So thank you for allowing me to be your first visitor guest on the podcast. I've had so much fun, and
Yeah. Well, thank you, baby, for being the first interviewer to interview me and coming on the Produce on Purpose podcast. It has been a great podcast and a great celebration. Thank you for celebrating with me a whole year. Can you believe it that I have been able to share this information in a podcast and that it is being shared out nationally to all that want to listen and hear? I'm so grateful. Sounds like we have had some transformational content today, and hopefully we'll have you back on at some point in time. Whenever you are ready, baby, you come on and be a part of the Produce on Purpose podcast, and then we can experience life being the real you.
Yeah, I can see some potential collaborations helping people get unstuck so that they're able to produce on purpose and create a life they don't have to escape. How about that?
Oh, now you are adding in all the stuff from your great work, which you are the unstuck strategist, and you have some great information. Do you want to just share a little bit about what you were doing as we close out this particular episode?
Sure. So again, my name is Dr. Sherlonda Adkins, and I am a transformational speaker, a national board certified physician assistant, success coach, all the things. And I help people get unstuck and create a life they don't have to escape. I work a lot with professionals who have found themselves feeling stuck when their goals and aspirations and career just don't really fit the current version of who they are. And so I help them uncover what their true motivations are, help them push past some of their limited thinking, and then create a plan they can execute so that they can create a life they don't have to escape. I'm on all social medias, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Dr. Sherlonda Adkins. And that's about it.
Well, drsherlondaatkins.com. I encourage you, definitely check her out in all that she's doing. She is transforming lives in everything that she's doing. And we are just so excited. Thank you for being a part of this episode. And we are still celebrating, and we're going to continue to celebrate into our next year. We ask that you continue to share this podcast with others as we move forward and as we are doing what we should do. And of course, I encourage you today that you would, number one, be the real you, and that you would produce on purpose. As we bring this illuminating episode to a close, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, our cherished listeners. Your presence, your engagement enrich our podcast journey, and I'm truly honored to be a part of your growth and transformation. To ensure that you never miss an episode and the insights and inspiration of this podcast, hit that subscribe button and also provide a review on whatever podcast platform that you're listening on. Today's discussion, if it has been fantastic for you, we ask that you invite and share this episode with your friends and your family. Let's create a ripple effect of healing and empowerment together. Visit randyadkinsjr.com today and get your audiobook, your book, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You. You will also find additional episodes of this podcast. You will find events. You will find videos and sermons that are all on that on that website, randyadkinsjr.com. And you also can give me your feedback. Your words have the power to shape the future content of this podcast. I thrive on your input. So share with me any topics or feedback that you might have, and I will potentially have that information and put it into future content of this podcast. Until next time, remember that every step you take towards being the real you is a step towards unlocking your boundless potential. Stay tuned, stay inspired, and above all, today be the real you and produce on purpose.